economy. How can we drive innovation and increase data sharing? No single member state can achieve this alone, but together we will.
Welcome back. We mentioned before the coffee break that we want to talk about ensuring that Europe leads in the global digital economy. That is why we will now be speaking to one of the key people setting the direction of the European tech policy today. His name, Roberto Viola. As the head of DG Connect, the European Commission department, which regulates communications networks, content and technology, he knows this area all too well. Over the last 5 years, he has overseen the emergence of game-changing technologies such as AI, IoT, 5G, as well as Europe's digital single market. He's now exploring with the European Space Agency the development of a highly secure quantum infrastructure to protect Europe's critical data and communications. Please give a warm welcome again to Roberto Viola. Welcome. So, Mr. Viola, you worked for the European Space Agency as a young man. You have 2 patents to your name. However, it was the US that reaped the benefits of your inventions. And you're still trying to struggle with this in your job. One of your top priorities is EU leadership in key technologies. How will you create and how are you creating the right conditions so that European innovation, European companies can scale up and stay in Europe?
Thanks, Herlitschka. I think you underlined young, speaking about my past. I still
age is a state of mind.
Indeed. I still feel full of energy. You know, Europe is a noble lady that sometimes, likes to be polite, likes to look left and right in the world and try to find the way to work with everyone, and it's also kind of slow sometimes. It took us a bit of time to understand how to do good commercial plane, but when we understood it, we have the best plane of the world. We have the best cars of the world. I think we were not drawn into this because we really wanted to say we are good, but if the narrative around is we must lead, we must be first, I think Europe is here to stay, frankly. We have all the capabilities, all the possibilities, we have the best engineers, we have the best, we are the largest market of the world. The digital single market of Europe by GDP is by far still the largest market of the world. So there are all the ingredients to make sure that not only we are a market, but also we generate value for our citizens, for our companies. And there are, of course, priorities because you cannot do everything. And the priority for us is to be relevant into the 3-4 key technologies which will shape the future in the next 5 years. And
but how do you bring them to market? Europe is so good at research, but that's one of the challenges. And that's what's making Europe actually dependent on foreign technologies. And that's another priority that you have, to have Europe develop its own technologies.
You should never ask the question how to bring to market new technology to a bureaucrat. I will give you a terrible answer. But I try. But I think we are not to be shy to do big things. Because if you do many, many small things, at the end of the day, you risk not to be relevant. You risk to run in all sorts of directions and not really make an impact. I think we need a lot of focus. We need to set clearly what are the things which we can do and can shape the future. So we should not be shy, for instance, in investing in public procurement, to do innovative public procurement, to support our companies. Of course, one part of the story is the ecosystem. So we should have the best possible universities. We should have the best possible ecosystem for startups, venture capital that works. I think when we talk of something like artificial intelligence or new shaping technologies, of course, you have to have the markets believing in you. So there should be equity investments. There should be people risking their money into this, which is something that functions well in some parts of the world. In Europe, we are always a bit more skeptical. We want to see, certain safety around things. So we have, in other words, a risk-averse attitude to some of the high-tech innovations. I think we have to overcome this. And public procurement helps in this respect.
And continuing on that subject, let's take a look at 5G. How will Europe respond to the security risks from outside? Will it delay its adoption and development of 5G, which is so important to the new economy?
Well, is it kind of perceived risk from the outside, or is it an objective issue? I do think that security in 5G networks is, frankly, an objective risk that we have to face. I mean, if 5G would be pervasive, as it would be, used for cars, used for medical devices, used for controlling electric grids, then of course it has to be the safest technology on Earth. So, for us, security is a top concern. And we have also asked our member states whether they would think the same. And the leaders of Europe, the ESO states, said yes, and please, from the European Commission, let's try to coordinate our approach to security. And that's why we have decided to adopt a recommendation on security of 5G, which is risk-based. So, together with the member states, we will do a risk assessment and we will come to certain conclusions. We are not targeting a particular company, a particular country. We will do a risk assessment based on facts and also, of course, on other considerations that are relevant to the security.
I want to switch to fairness, the issue of data, which people say is the new gold. It is so valuable. Private companies are gathering a lot of data on all of us, which is our private data. How is Europe going to regulate this and get the right balance between having people's data used, but in a way that's fair to them?
I think you touched on one of the most important issues for the next 5 years. Because if it is true, and it is true, that many of the innovation in society, in services, and in industry will be data-driven, then the issue of who owns the data, how the data are used, is central to the development of our society and our economy. Take medical data. Yesterday, we had the informal council of health ministers discussing the whole day about this. Who are the owners of health data? Us, the citizens. In this, the General Data Protection Regulation is very clear. We are the owners, we are empowered. We also know that most of the Europeans are ready to donate their data for actually advancing in medical science. So the question is, which kind of governance we want for those data? And this will be a very relevant question. If we have a mechanism that is fair, that guarantees privacy, that guarantees that everybody has access to the data, I'm sure we will create a data ecosystem that will fuel AI in medicine, in transport, in other systems. If instead we will lock the data in silos that belong to certain companies, the trust of the people in data economy will not be there, and we will not have innovation. So we have, as public authorities, a very big role in the future to make sure that the right data governance system will be there.
You mentioned the future, and let's look at the future. What is your boldest idea for the future that you're thinking about right now, that I can ask you in a year's time and see where you are?
I have many.
I think I know it has quantum to do in it. Well, I think it is.
You know, Herlitschka, if I would have in my hand a quantum computer right now, I would crack your bank account in a matter of seconds. Is it enough scary?
Yes, it is.
Quantum, the next, we are all using this generation of quantum, no? With lasers and all sorts of devices which we use every day. There's this second generation, which is about computing. It's about what we will discuss in a second, which is transmitting, in the most secure possible way, information around. It is about sensors in our body or everywhere that can actually spot a minimal variation even of at subatomic scale. It's about time measurement and countless other applications. So whoever cracks quantum technologies and owns, all the secrets about this, it's really in a position, I wouldn't say to rule the world, but in a very, very, very important position. And whoever has interest to advance in terms of economy, society, cannot really be steady in front of the quantum revolution. That's why we are extremely serious. We have a quantum flagship, which really groups the best of quantum science in Europe. And now we start to play ball on operational projects, because it's now time that we go to the next step and also we realize some of those dreams for real.
And we'll be talking more. Yes, we will be talking more about this. I've been reading a lot, trying to understand what quantum technology is. It really is fascinating. Thank you, Mr. Viola. What a good note to end on. And actually, our fireside chat takes us to the topic of our next session, which is Digital for Leadership. And Mr. Viola will stay with us.
I will not distract.
We will have you pay for it. We'll check it. You will stay with us for Digital for Leadership, where we will continue talking about quantum physics but mostly about Europe's leadership in the digital technology in the new economy, which is so important, and how Europe can lead in key technologies. But before we start, I want to show you a video which will frame our discussion on leadership.
Europe is the world's largest and most advanced market for digital products and services. Thanks to AI, big data, super and quantum computing, blockchain and 5G, digitization is accelerating in economic sectors where the EU is strongest: manufacturing, services, mobility, energy, health and finance. Our microelectronics industry is making an impressive comeback under the Excel initiative. And thanks to Euro HPC, Europe will have the world's fastest supercomputer by next year. But many future-shaping technologies are produced outside of Europe. Foreign platforms hold mountains of data. Europe cannot reach its full potential by building on external foundations. It must lead the way with its own values and strengths. We are on the verge of a major revolution which we can still shape. How can Europe lead the digital economy? How can we drive innovation and increase data sharing? No single member state can achieve this alone, but together we will.
For many key technologies, Europe depends on components developed elsewhere. But this is not without consequences, particularly when it comes to security and competitiveness. Can the continent turn itself into a world leader in the next wave of digital transformation?
It seems to have the ingredients for it, because Europe has a strong research base, great minds, and great entrepreneurs. It has world-class manufacturing, transportation, health, public services, and finance. But still, Europe is yet to realize its full potential on a global scale.
So what are the key elements, the key parts that are missing? We will find that out from our next panel, which will be divided into two parts. The first will concentrate on Europe's position on the global value chain.
And the second part is concentrated on how it can leverage its strength into a position of leadership.
But before we invite our panelists on the stage, we would like to ask you, the audience, a question via Slido. Your favorite technology.
Exactly. Do you remember that, please? I need more votes on these questions that you should see over there on the far right screen. Come on, take out your smartphone, connect on Slido, and I think the code has changed to Digital4Leadership, am I right? So I'd like my colleagues to confirm that. So the question is Europe ambitious enough in its efforts and investments to be a major player in the digital transformation? Please take your time, not too long, couple of seconds, half a minute, and give us an answer.
And Mihai, besides voting, we also want to ask our audience to pose some questions, and we will choose 2 of them to ask to our panel.
And I checked, already many questions have gathered on Slido, so please continue to address those questions. And do not worry if your questions are not picked. Why am I saying this? Your ideas will gather and will be gathered by the European Policy Center and shared with the future European Commission. So actually, you in this audience today have a chance to shape up the next 5 years of Europe's policies.
How about that?
Yep.
And while we wait for you to do that and write your questions and answer our question, we would like to invite our panelists to come and join us here on the stage. Dr. Harald Gruber, Head of Digital Economy and Innovation at the European Investment Bank. Dr. Jacques Bughin, Senior Partner at McKinsey & Company, Director of the McKinsey Global Institute. Come. Dr. Ieva Martinkenaite, VP of Telenor Research, member of the high-level expert group on AI. Welcome. Dr. Radus Sordeanu, Senior Director of Digital Economy of Siemens. And Andreas Schall, Director of Global Relations of the OECD. Welcome to you as well. And we welcome Bert de Kolvenaer, Director of Excel, Electronic Components and Systems of European Leadership. Welcome.
Welcome all of you. Take your seats, please, and let's see what the answers on Slido are. Well, we have 72% saying yes. Europe should be ambitious enough and become a leader in the digital world that we are stepping in. 28% do not think we've got what it takes. I think Mr. Viola for certainly will not confirm that. But how about the other panelists?
That's right. Well, how about we start with Mr. Bughin? Are you surprised by this quite interesting answer, basically, that Europe should be more ambitious?
Well, I'm kind of surprised. I thought that the numbers will be more 90-10, so the 30% is already quite good. But we know the narrative. I think the narrative is quite clear. We should spend more. But I guess the narrative by itself may be a danger to us. A danger of saying, look, that's a fact of life. Let's stick to it. We're going to be always second or third in that race. And I don't think that's the way to look at it. And I think there are 5 points I want to make very clear why this is not the way we should think about it. The very first one is not, do we spend enough? The first question is always, why do you have to spend in the first place? And what's the return? And if you look today at these digital technologies, all the work we've done tend to suggest that this is the best ever potential we can get in higher productivity growth in the next 10 to 20 years. We even try a number for it, which is more than 2 trillion of added value by 2030. If you got that kind of number, the question is not, are we spending enough? The question is much more, can we spend at a scale that justifies to get that major potential? So it's a question of scaling much bigger than what we discuss in this question.
Let me propose a game for now, because this is interesting. The idea just came up to me. Let's keep this question open throughout the panel and see how the answers are evolving. So we started at 72 yes, 28% no. Now it's 71 yes, 29% no. And let's gather some more opinions. How about Dr. Martinkenaite? short answers about the premises that we are starting the discussion from.
Well, I think that is, I'm not that optimistic, but it's not surprising actually. And I would agree, it's the extent of investment and freeing the private capital and private investment into the key technologies will be essential. So I'm looking forward to see how that changes after our discussion.
All right. So let's see if you take upon you the task to actually reverse these answers by the end of the panel. Dr. Surdano, what do you think?
Yeah, indeed it's not surprising, and probably I was waiting more an answer like 90-10. And probably it's because Europe also is not very visible to everybody, what all the efforts are there. And on the other hand, we should be much more ambitious in a sense that we should be much more focused on where we put the investments, and we lack the sense of urgency. And we discovered in the past year, while we had the discussion on the AI guidance for ethical, that we do lack the sense of urgency. And I think if we bring these two things, the focus and the sense of urgency together, we will be definitely a good player on the market.
Dr. Gruber, speaking of investments, what is your reaction of spending and scaling and making the most of the money that can be invested in Europe's digital transition?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, as an economist, I look also what you get out from it. So I think the ambitions might be there. We put some money in there. It's not enough, certainly that's not enough, but also the performance per se could be much better. Because if you look, I mean, we have seen before a video which was quite promising somehow, but if you really look, it's sufficient for you to open a computer and you look where all the devices and all the programs come from. You see that Europe has still quite a lot to catch up in terms of performance, getting things out. The potential is there, but the question is, how can you translate that potential into concrete results?
And Mr. Schall, from a more international perspective, how does Europe does lag behind in investment when compared to the United States, to China?
I mean, we need to differentiate it. In Europe, very often when we speak about investment, about public investment, we think about roads, we think about rules for the roads, we think about the signs for the roads, then we think about the cars on the road. But in the digital economy, we need to fundamentally reverse this. I give you an example. In terms of broadband, we have 96% of the companies are using broadband, 86% of the households. But when we look at how many of the companies are using cloud computing, it's only on the medium-sized enterprises above 46% of companies with more than 250 employees. It's only 16% of the smaller companies. So there's something we need to do more in making the companies more use of the best tools for the digital economy. And one thing more, which is probably the most crucial thing in Europe, only 8% of all the investment done on artificial intelligence is done in Europe. Only 8% of all the investment portfolio. So we need to go back to this European philosophy of the European creativity, of really think about what are the products and what do we want to get out of the digital economy. And this is something where Europe is lagging behind. And both international organizations, governments, the EU Commission, the European Union, and companies, we need to work together on that.
All right. I'm looking at Mr. de Colvener here, and I would ask you, what would you put your money on? Because, okay, to switch that, to reverse that, what sectors should we develop and try to really become worldwide leaders on it?
I will answer the question by first answering this question. I think the password for success in both the efforts and the investments is together. If we can put all the efforts we have available in Europe together, if we can put the investments together in Europe, we will be able to make bigger impact. And in the current model I'm running, but I think there are many other opportunities to do just the same, to bring all these efforts and financing together. But where to put your money on? And that, I think, should be reflected into the most important societal challenges where, how to say, the European citizen is in need. What would be, on average, it's a good question for Slido,
right.
What would be your first 3 priorities where you would like to put your money on? Now, everybody has his own private life and background, but I'm sure health could well be there. Mobility, everybody hates to waste time in traffic and so on.
Oh, yes.
Energy will be another one. So I believe these are 3 sectors, application sectors, where you would believe everybody has a keen interest. And obviously the technologies we are developing together with DG Connect and all the other instruments on quantum, artificial intelligence, high performance, all the electronic components and systems are enabling in order to allow everything to happen. So look at the application, decide your technology, and the password is together.
Together. We get this keyword from your answer, but there is one small problem. If we bet on mobility and energy, well, really everybody, like all the planet, has the same concerns. So again, what might be the key ingredient to make the Europe the leader in at least one of these fields? Because everyone wants cheap energy and great mobility. So how do we get out of that conundrum? Please.
Well, I guess I disagree a bit on your statement. The very first one is that Europe is leader in many situations. Again, tech as a global technology like artificial intelligence will spread across all the sectors. So it's not a question about high tech or energy. In biotech, for instance, we are pretty good. And in biotech, if you merge that with high power computing and AI, maybe one day we're going to be the one to crack the code of AI genomics and create a new pharmaceutical industry where we are actually quite pretty good today. So I think the point is that we are at the beginning of a curve, of a race. Let's not simply say, look, let's give up. We should continue to invest. And again, on the rest, I tend to agree. It's difficult to be necessarily the leaders in everything, but I also believe that today the question is a question of trying, experimenting, scaling. We don't know what the answer is, but I don't think we should give up because we've got the skills and we've got at least a vision. And by the way, we've got tools. We got the DSM. The DSM, people say, oh, 50% of that has been achieved. Well, say 50% is already a big number, and we can continue. So the promise is much more in the way we look at things. Let's continue to operate. Let's not necessarily bet on 2 sectors. Let's bet on all of them, and let's try to operate and do things.
Mr. Viola, where would you put your money at, and where do you think Europe's biggest vulnerabilities and dependencies are that you need to fill those holes and need to develop in that direction?
Well, I have many ideas where to put my money, but if I really have to choose, on people. I think we need to have really the best possible skills in Europe and retain them in Europe. We need to have the best possible high education, the best possible professional training, because that's where you will see scarcity coming. Machines you can buy to a certain extent. Intellectual capital you have to build in, and I think we have the best condition. I mean, look at our way of life, the possibility to host people in an open, democratic, caring society. Why you would not be choosing Europe to come and work? Of course, then we have to believe that we want to have people from all over the world working in Europe, inventing in Europe, creating in Europe. That for me would be priority number 1.
And does anybody want to address the question of what are the barriers to getting more people to come to Europe, the best minds, and not to have a brain drain? Does anybody want to take that question? and what kind of regulations and incentives need to be created so that that happens. And Europe, people come to Europe for the social model, and they come because they feel like they can create and they have the right environment.
I will give a try. Again, it's not a question of migration. We always have these myths of people migrating to hotspot. If you happen to look at the digital ecosystem from a city point of view, and you take the top 20s, actually pretty much 50 to 70% of those are actually cities in Europe. And it's ranked by the skills and capital that basically merge together. So we got great stuff. We tend to be biased by the US, where you see San Francisco, where the number of VC funding is very large, the number of great companies emerging out of a small startup is actually quite large, but it's an exception. If you look at Berlin, if you look at London, if you look at Paris, we've got skills there. So the question here is that let's make sure the ecosystem is actually much more sticky. Today it's happening at the city level. My dream is that we create that extra layer across Europe where people are migrating, a few days in Berlin, a few days possibly here, another day in Paris and the like, and we create that kind of stickiness. And I think it's a great competitive advantage. Lastly, I think we got great universities. These universities are going slightly down in terms of the ranking versus the US and possibly versus China. But again, we've got this, this element that we can revamp. And again, one of the key things that Europe has done in the past has been this Erasmus program. So why do we not create the Erasmus program for big data, and create new mobility at that skill level? So instead of people trying to attract them, I'm quite sure people from China will actually come even more. And by the way, today, they come quite heavily in Europe. 90% of Chinese applications happen to be, for instance, in universities like a big school in France. So we need to basically shape up the European on that way. And I'm actually quite optimistic. We just have to make it happen. That's my thesis.
And the point you make is a good transition for the second part of our discussion, where we will look at how we can turn Europe's technological achievements into global leadership. Right,
absolutely. Mr. Surdano, you'll have a chance after the presentation that we're going to hear now, because indeed we should put the money on Europe's strength, and we think we have enough to build on that and actually conquer the position of leaders worldwide on many issues. Is here to correct me if necessary, Mr. Bert of Colvener. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. So you gave it a lot of thought, and I know you have a presentation. All right. If you can, yeah, the clicker is over there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not Sabine. You can see that. I'm standing in for her. She unfortunately can't be here. She was planning to connect by video conference. Sabine is the chair of the Excel governing board and to a certain extent my boss. I will pass the messages which I believe she wanted to broadcast here. So,
there's the clicker. Excellent. Thank you.
Digital.
It's digital for sure.
Yeah, if I pointed at the right directions. What we were just discussing is about semiconductor technology, which is really, as indicated in this slide, in between the real world and the virtual world. Many things we experience in our everyday life is really based on the connection between both. The whole semiconductor activities are right in the middle. And for that, I think the future is super bright. And this is basically what is being explained in this slide, where you have what I even referred to before, the different significant trends we have on efficiency, mobility, security, health, Internet of Things. And the forecast, you see where this may go in the upcoming years. Now, this is just, let's say, only from the technical point of view, but please reflect on the business model which goes behind that. Because even that, if you go towards the new service of everything, I would say, you see new upcoming business models which will accelerate even the benefit of all these upcoming new technologies, smart cars, industry, mobile infrastructure, 5G, so on and so forth. So without any doubt, and I'm talking or preaching to the converted, the semiconductor is one of the key elements. But our European position, if I may say, is not the most prominent. This is a table comparing the worldwide most important semiconductor manufacturers. We see the ones in blue, America, the purple ones in Asia, and then the orange ones are the European ones. We are on position 9, 11, and 13. So that's not really, let me say, an overwhelming success. You may say we're working on niche markets, but we are not in the volume activity. Now, why is that? I'm sure that she will, and probably even more convinced, advocate that the Made in China program, Made in China 2025, is of such a magnitude and of such a dominance on what China's ambitions are in the semiconductor world that by far this is just scary. Because they are putting such an amount of resources, and not only the financial resources but also the intellectual, in order to go and try to address the, the markets, the upcoming markets, moving from what China traditionally was the cheap factory of the world and towards technology dominance. And as you all know, the stress situation between the US and China is just mainly based on this kind of effect. They want to become technology leader by 2025. 2025, we are in 2019, that's tomorrow. So there is an urgency behind on how we should react on this. Now, artificial intelligence, we all know, is an upcoming technology, and on this slide we see what are the potentials. Now you see the size of the ball is relative to the amount of money, but what is most important is we don't talk anymore about billions, we talk about trillions. We have moved an order of magnitude upwards. And as you can see, despite some of the effort the European Commission is making, the small bubble in the middle, 1.8 trillion euro, is modest compared to what the US and what China is doing. So the potential is huge. And therefore, everything which will be put against has to be in relation, has to be order of magnitude the same. So we have to keep on making an effort, as the Slido question was indicating, making an effort and investing in the different technologies, including the artificial intelligence. This complements the previous slide, seeing how we move, how especially America and China, moving forward in patents, IP related to artificial intelligence. The slope is basically the velocity, how quick things go forward. You see that they are quicker, much quicker at what we are currently doing. The question before was about resources, human capital. We need to make sure that we keep on investing in this. But no artificial intelligence without data. And again, we all know the data, the quantity of data, the quality of data is exploding. And we need to make sure that also in the field of big data, how this relates to artificial intelligence and everything behind, we need to be on the spot. We need to be very careful on that. And because of that, and this is just an illustrative slide from the Infineon perspective, the company Sabine was working for, is a recent investment that they have restarted in Europe to invest semiconductor for a substantial amount, and of course generating a lot of employment. In view of time, to be a little more quick, the model of the joint undertaking I'm in charge of and Sabine is in chair is really building on what I said before, doing the things together, working together, member states, European Commission and industry, thinking together, making an elaborated strategy on key technology, key digital technologies, and by the end, bringing all the resources, the financial means together in order to realize that. In view of time, I would like to conclude. The technology competence will be the new currency. We will position ourselves against the rest of the world in order how capable we are to have, to develop and to supply. Obviously, in order to do so, we need a strong political commitment, a long-term, strong political commitment to say, let's do it. And yes, 2025, the ambition of China is very close. And the models like Excel are really enabler in order to realize this. These are the comments from Sabine. I would like to add 3 comments from my side. First, we have to make sure we do it together. Second, we have to do it quickly. And third, we should not be in our comfort zone. We should not be naive. If we are not quick enough, the others will be quicker. Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising the pressure. We are now in a race against time also. But it's a race we want to win, right?
Yeah, and Miha, I think we should turn to specific projects or
Absolutely.
areas in which Europe has a big potential, and basically they are as they say in the United States, shovel-ready projects that can easily be implemented. If you were to mention a few projects that could be started right now and are important, Dr. Martinkenaite, can you address that?
Let me turn around this question a little bit.
Please.
I don't think we should focus on specific projects. But what we should do, we should recognize where the European strengths are and where the future technology is leading. So number one, if you look what's happening in the most in other parts of the world, what's happening is that the values created by regions that actually cracked, leveraged the enabling ecosystem or platforms-based ecosystem approach. So if I could call Europe to do something very concretely, is to really learn, embrace, and invest in specific technology ecosystems. And I will tell if I were where those should be, and this was mentioned already. Number one, we increasingly need high capacity and low latency networks. Number two, it seems that the edge computing, the computing with high privacy requirements, real-time, power-efficient computing becomes essential for many applications, but particularly where Europe is strong. B2B, P2C markets, this is exactly where Europe actually creates 2/3 of the value added. And number three, and all combined, this is low-power artificial intelligence capability to embrace those 3 technologies for specific and strategic markets of Europe. So we should start thinking of a very holistic approach of investing in technology. It's not only AI, it's not only IoT or only 5G. It's together embracing in the enabling ecosystems. So that would be my answer to that question. And it could be, we can name the project as we want, but if we actually nail that and put investments, I think Europe has a very bright future.
Absolutely. And if you consider that the big data is the new currency, I would like to ask Mr. Surdanu, do we have the infrastructure to conserve and use this new currency and to make it more valuable?
Yeah, so building up on Ieva's answer, which was great, is that we do have a really strong, a key strength in Europe, and that's industrial AI. We have this infrastructure and we have a data collection of more than 30 years in Europe. And we know what to do with it. And this is one of the focus points that we should have in Europe, because not only we have the data, we have the infrastructure, but we do create an ecosystem of large companies, SMEs, knowledge centers and academia working together. And I come with this to the second strong point of Europe. There's multiculturalism and co-creation across the silos. And this Excel is one of the great examples, and I used to be active in Excel.
I'm sorry, Mr. Surdanu, I have a quick follow-up. Thinking about the childhood is like this: be nice, share your toys with other children. And I'm asking these follow-up questions with you because you represent a private company. Are you willing to share your toys, to share your big data with other children?
Sure, once the IP...
Under what conditions?
Yeah, exactly, sure. Once we have a clear legislation in place for IP sharing. At this moment, how we do it on contractual basis, and the customer owns the data. We do not own customers' data. We play with other kids, but it's their toys. They allow us to play with their toys, they play with our toys, and this is how we deal with it. Once the IP issues are solved, for sure, this will be really great. And yeah, coming back to Excel, I think the word together, that this is one of the biggest strengths of Europe. And this you don't see much in other parts of the world. You know, and AI gives us a tool to break down the silos. You cannot bring, as an engineer, an AI product on the market. You need to talk to a lot of people from different fields. And this is what, with Excel, we're doing very well. I think we should leverage on this point.
And Mr. Bughin, sorry, I can go to someone else, but basically when it comes to sharing the data and companies sharing their data with rivals, it's very important, right, for data to be pooled and information to be extracted. So what are the barriers that Europe faces in promoting that?
I have two ways to answer the questions. The very first one is that let's define what data is. It's a digitalization of an information. And again, sometimes we got carried away by big data. And again, I suspect big data, as you said, was obviously very effective at the time the leadership was assumed by the US, where it's all B2C and brutal force of data on social media. Today, if you want to do some specific element on digitization with artificial intelligence, the B2B space, high precision B2B market, sometimes you're going to face very small set of data. And the algorithm is actually much more important data itself. So again, we have to be careful not to think it's all about volume. It's also about context and quality of the data and velocity of the data. And there, in fact, Europe is not lagging, it's actually winning. Now, on the bottleneck, there are three bottlenecks. The very first one is that it's not data should be shared or not. It's, again, what quality of data should be open for what. Today, there are a lot of garbage data, a lot of noises. So I propose that we have at least an open architecture, but an open architecture for the real use cases where data is mission critical and the like, where the competitive advantage could not be biased because of somebody owning this data. Second point of a bottleneck is that I work for a lot of companies. I can tell you, they pretty much know at best 1% of the data they have. They possibly use 10% correctly that tell you where it goes in terms of the use case. So there's still a lot to make sure that people understand how to use this data to make the right application and the right use of that. And last but not least, it's not only a supply side, and I love the way Europe has been on the demand side, is to say, if you want data to be sustained, you need to know who and from who it originates. I'm not saying that we should have all the data owned by us and have a price point attached to that, but I think it's important that if we want information to flow, we need to make sure that we know where it originates, where it goes, simply because of the security, possibly because, simply because as well privacy. So I think those elements of the bottlenecks today are well understood, but the corporate governance is not well established, and there as well, Europe should pound its weight on the table and say, this is the governance models I want. I want high quality, secure, private. I don't want the China model, and I don't want the US model. And in between, if you vote and you ask people what they are likely to prefer something different from China and US, so it's a wide space to take.
Well, I think you raised so many good points that Director General Viola might to comment upon. I mean, how do we keep the balance between Europe's appetite for really building worldwide admired civil rights and I'm thinking of the GDPR, that it's a leader in itself and in place for a year and a half now, and also for this urge from the industry and from the digital economy to collect, analyze, and share big data.
I don't think there's any contradiction. First of all, if you see the technology side, and you make a link between this panel, the previous one, developing a super performant low power processor is good for the environment, is good for industry. So we must do it, full stop. Looking at supercomputing grids is good for the environment, is good for industry. So again, no brainer. So there are things which are absolutely win-win. And let me take another win-win example looking at data, medical data. I mean, win for the citizens means personalized medicine, better addressing all sorts of diseases that today we cannot cure. Win for the governments, because actually with personalized medicine you can save a lot of money. Win for industry, because healthcare is one of the largest industry of Europe. So triple win, what about this? But then you have to do one thing, bring the algorithm to the citizens, not vice versa. So make sure that actually you don't take the data out of the legitimate owners and store them somewhere, but actually make sure that you respect the will, you respect the right way of using the data. So you have a human-centric data model, which is perfectly possible. With new technologies, it's perfectly possible to keep your identity, to detach the data from your identity. You can use nice things like blockchain and other beauties. So Europe has the technology, has the mindset, has the democratic system to do something which is quite different from the view, let's house the data in big companies because this company become even bigger, or from the view, let's control all the citizens, which we reject from the very beginning. So there's a midway, which is much better and much more interesting.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to turn to another issue that Mr. Colvano brought up, that the future, we will be looking for technology competence. And I'd like to turn our conversation to what are the ingredients missing for Europe's great talents to scale here in Europe? And I'd like to go to Mr. Schall first for an international perspective on that.
Thank you very much indeed. Indeed, very important question. I tend to agree with Jacques and Roberto that Europe is not doing so well in terms, so bad in terms of the fundamentals. We have excellent skills, excellent engineers, good education system, open to technology. So we have the fundamental right. The question is, and this is something also Jacques mentioned, whether we have enough space to innovate, whether we have enough space to experiment, whether we have enough space to make faults, to go another way. I give you one example again. I was recently in China on a panel with the head of research of Huawei. And he told the audience that they're currently developing an autonomous driving tractor for a farmer. And the farmer sits on his sofa, and then with 5G, he conducts from his sofa the tractor doing the field. So being a farmer in the digital world is a pretty smart job. So maybe one thing to do for Roberto is to talk to the colleagues in the DG Ag. Maybe the best agriculture policy for the European Union is to invest in artificial intelligence rather than subsidizing the price of milk. So this is the thing. I'm not sure whether this will ever happen, but we need to have more of this social fantasy in terms of products and what we need to do, how we use our people's skills. And this needs to be part of the curricula in universities and in companies when we speak about skilling.
If you allow,
Mr. Viola wants to respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. You are absolutely right. We convinced in March 28 agricultural ministries to work together on precision farming, and so stay tuned.
I wanted to pick up on your analogy with the agriculture, because I want to ask Mr. Surdano, okay, if it's not necessarily a matter of money, or, well, it is, maybe. If we are against a race against time, well, it is, we've heard that. But what are, in terms of fertilizing this precise agriculture, the missing ingredients to make our brains grow in terms of research and transforming that into actual products on the market?
Yeah, so one of the things is that you can have the greatest technology in the world. Once you do not have the regulation in place, it will never reach the market. And there are plenty of examples, and if we have time, we can go through that. So one of the things is to speed up the regulation would be the example that we have from financial world on sandboxing, where we engage, as Bert was saying, you know, together, but also with the regulators, with the commission. And it's a win-win situation, because they will learn, the commission and the regulators will learn where the technology stands at this point, and we will learn from them how to do legislations, how to do regulations, and to help them in building up a sustainable future. And I think this will be one of the things that we would like to see in the next commission, that they support us in implementing the sandboxes, which is limited in time, limited in space, and is very fast. And it will just promote this very focused and a sense of urgency for Europe.
Yeah, I think Mr. Viola, Mr. Gruber, who wants to respond? Sorry, we have one mic.
Yeah, I'm still stressed by the slides.
I think my colleagues put it up again. Let me inform the audience. I'm not sure if they are aware of that. We are still 73% nays, how they say in the British Parliament. So try harder.
So let's make three simple tricks to make sure the numbers can go up. So the very first one is that a bottom-up approach to everything is okay, but it will not necessarily move the needle to the 50% that we want. So again, the beauty of it, we are possibly, if you aggregate all the public sectors of the member states, we can spend publicly and make big bets in these industries or in this technology like no one can do. China model is exactly that. What China does is not only financing, but it's the largest customer of its own company. So what are we expecting to, we can basically do the same and scale it. I really like Roberto Viola's points of saying, if there is a sector where we cannot be wrong, it's obviously medical services, because we've got the technology, we have a better management system than the US, and we all know that a better health span and a better life is as important as great economic activity. Let's make the bet in that, and maybe we should actually put the resource and just do that big scale. And point number 3, let's again go back to the public policy aspect. The trick is that if China is using its own force to be the public spender and the public client, the US have created the DARPA and many institutions to finance these kind of private companies that we see today. So why not to do it again? And I think the point here is to say, it's not, are we ambitious enough? Do we have daring ecosystem and policy to make sure we try big, we can fail big, but at least we will have tried.
So let's have Mr. Viola respond.
Right, and we have a reaction from this point, from this part also.
Well, actually, more than response, agreeing totally. And let me give you a concrete example where this trick worked. Supercomputing. When I started my current job, I asked how much we spend per year, and my colleagues told me 300 million per year, which is not exactly coffee money. I said, give me the top 20 supercomputers of the world. Can you guess where Europe was? Number 18, 21, 22. So I said, how is possible? Well, I mean, because we didn't have, because all supercomputing programs in the world are public programs. Who else can pay those big machines for doing basically science and things like this? So I said, why don't we change the model? But it's difficult. Let's do it. 2017, like we will do in 5 minutes here, we convince a group of member states, let's work together. Let's do it. In a record time, we have set up a legal entity, which is called EuroHPC. This legal entity has basically pulled together all the money in supercomputing, the money of DG Connect, of the European Commission, the money of the member states, and 4 days ago, we have awarded the 8 sites in Europe for a cumulative investment of 1 billion, us, the member states, and this is the largest supercomputing grid of the world, done in 1 year. So this is the proof that on big things you have to go big. And actually, these are things you have to do from the public side. Don't expect the private investor to come. Yet maybe they will come when they will see a business case. And quantum is the same. I mean, first of all, let's do it. Let's do it because everybody else is doing it because it will change the world. So, but also micro public procurement is very important. Why the administrations of Europe don't procure from startups from Europe? Apps, new ideas, blockchain-based solution. Why this is not possible? It must be possible. So public procurement is an important lever. No, of course, it's not the medicine, it's not the remedy for everything, but it's an important lever which we have not used in the past very much, while other economies of the world are heavily using it for defense, for strategic reasons, for every smart system, whatever. So we must do more of this kind of exercises.
You actually pulled us into the next part of our event. Excellent and strong finish, let's say, for this panel.
Absolutely, about public investment in digital. And
you know why? Because maybe we like to think that it's harder, well, it's hard to invest your own money. We like to think, the taxpayer like to think that it's harder to invest people's money. And that point of view, it's even stronger because of that.
And it's good what we heard also about the need for the public and the private sector to work together, about ecosystems. I really like the point that you made about how we should not invest in specific projects, but look at things in their entirety. And I think that's where an institution like the European Union comes in, because it can pull all the countries, sort of pull them all together and coordinate things. So this has been a wonderful, enlightening discussion. I wish we had more time. I'm sorry we didn't give you much time, Mr. Gruber.
There is a race against time in digital technology, but also in Digital Assembly 2019. So we'd like very much to thank you all and invite you to take your places back in the audience. Thank you again for your contribution to this year's event.
Now you can take your seats. Thank you so very much. And sorry we didn't have enough mics, but you shared. That's wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Viola, I'm sorry. We're not letting you go yet.
We kept your seat over there, or any of it if you want.
Well, as we have Mr. Viola staying on, we need him for our next discussion. You will soon find out why. Our discussion will turn to one example, one specific example where the Commission has been particularly active recently, which I must say, Mihai, is out of this world.
Absolutely. It has been mentioned already. It's about quantum technologies that have been on Europe's agenda for some time, but the youth interest on the matter really took off since October last year.
Well, the first quantum revolution has already shaped the world we live in today, from lasers and transistors to the technologies that made mobile phones and even MRIs possible.
And today we are already talking about the second quantum revolution, and Europe wants to lead the race in cutting-edge applications. Herlitschka, I am a TV reporter, so I like to think so, simple questions. How does quantum technology work?
Oh, Mihai, I can talk about this in my sleep, but since you mentioned we're TV journalists, why don't we show a video about that instead?
Better.
What is quantum? Quantum technologies use the properties of quantum mechanics, such as the interaction of molecules, atoms, and even photons and electrons, to create devices and systems such as ultra-accurate clocks, medical imaging, and quantum computers. But their full potential remains to be unlocked. Imagine a quantum internet, a way of connecting quantum computers, simulators, and sensors via quantum networks and distributing information and resources securely worldwide. In October 2018, the European Commission launched the Quantum Flagship, a €1 billion project over 10 years involving 5,000 scientists to support quantum research in the EU, with the ultimate goal of creating a quantum internet. In the next decade, the EU plans to develop and deploy a secure pan-European quantum communication infrastructure to become the backbone of the quantum internet. The QCI will make quantum cryptography a part of conventional communication networks, protecting the EU's sensitive data and digital infrastructures and making it possible to exchange information between EU countries in a secure way. The QCI will combine terrestrial and satellite segments. While the terrestrial one will use existing fibre communication networks, linking strategic sites within and between countries, the satellite one will be deployed to cover very long distances across the EU. Quantum key distribution will be the first service to run on this infrastructure. QKD provides the sender and recipient of an encrypted message with an intrinsically secure random key, in such a way that an attacker cannot eavesdrop or control the system. QKD will secure important confidential communication, even against code breaking, by future quantum computers. The QCI will provide applications such as securely sharing secrets, digital signatures, authentication services, and clock synchronization. This infrastructure will be of major benefit for our economy and society, helping protect the EU's key digital assets against eavesdropping and ensure the security of sensitive governmental information, both from Earth and in space.
It is time now for our quantum panel to begin. Banks and institutions are already testing quantum technology. Testing it to create the most secure communications. Quantum simulations could also transform healthcare with cures for diseases like cancer. And hopefully it will allow us one day to crack the mystery of teleportation we have only seen in science fiction movies.
Yeah, so many things to look ahead to. But let's talk to the scientists who intend to turn this fiction into reality.
That's right, Michal.
Call them on stage.
That's right. The president of Vigo Systems, Mr. Adam Piotrowski.
Mr. Nicolae Victor Zamfir, director of Eli NP, which I think you all know is the most powerful laser in the world. It's a pan-European scientific project hosted by Romania.
Impressive. And Ms. Magali Vessier, Director, Telecommunications and Integrated Applications with the European Space Agency. Welcome to you as well. And Ms. Vessier, my first question when you take a seat, and the microphone, is to you. Well, we saw just now that quantum communications infrastructure has both terrestrial and satellite components. So how do you plan to make it a reality with the help of satellite technology?
So, good afternoon, and thank you for having ESAP contributing to this panel. So first, I would like to confirm that for us, quantum technology is really becoming a matter of key importance at all levels, from political decision makers, industrial leaders, also to the general public. So the Commission's ambitious plan for a European quantum communication infrastructure is an impressive projection into the future. It's the kind of initiative which Europe needs in order to stay at the forefront of technology and stimulate the development of innovative services in a global world. So QCI is a perfect example where space can support a European ambition. The intrinsic benefits of communication satellites can provide a valuable benefit to QCI terrestrial network solutions, in particular for quantum key distribution as a first instance. With the support of our member states, and in partnership with few private companies, we have been working over the last years and months on optical communication at large, and in the perspective of different commercial systems and concepts, including quantum key distribution. So now, based on our first acquired experience, we believe that satellite solutions can support European and global QKD services, which today, as we saw in the video, are not achievable by terrestrial solutions alone. And we are convinced that the key factor of success is the seamless integration of the space segment into the terrestrial solutions. So our teams from ESA, but also the Commission, are working to assess and size what could be this potential space component of the European QCI. In fact, to be very concrete, we are making a proposal to our ESA Ministerial Council at the end of this year, which foresees a QKD precursor mission. And therefore, the cooperation between the Commission and ESA is probably a very concrete and immediate contribution to what this QCI can be. So let me, in fact, congratulate really the Commission and also the supporting states for the declaration that I understand will be signed today.
Excellent. So we are ready with the satellite component for quantum communications. I'm looking at Mr. Piotrowski and I'm asking him, we want quantum communications, but we want them with European components built by European industry. So please, can we do that? And what are going to be the benefits of that?
Thank you. So generally, it's possible to make it fully European, but it's a long job. The journey started more than 30 years ago in the science labs when all the quantum technologies were for the quantum cryptography were started to be developed, and that was the science part. But now we are entering the introduction to the real infrastructure, real business, because as a photonic society, we are sure that photonic sensors will be everywhere. The data will feed the networks, but generally the worst case scenario is that finally we'll not be able to tell if the data is really coming from the sender that we want to have a communication with. So that's why we need a safe communication, and quantum distribution, key distribution is one of the technologies that can provide us a safety for the communication. So in Poland we did lots of workshops on quantum technologies and especially on quantum communication to map the abilities both in the companies making components, detectors, lasers, fibers, fiber systems, then owners of the fiber networks to check what are the capabilities, and we are able to do that. But then we need to combine our knowledge with European level of networks and then global level of networks. So that's one of the projects that is important for photonics, and we like to invest it national and European money in that, and hopefully we'll be ambitious enough.
And let's continue this topic with Mr. Nikolai Victor Zamfir. How can European scientific research support the development of this new digital initiative?
30 years ago, I would have been in a better position, because in that time, scientific research was a pushing force for developing the digital society. I remind you that World Wide Web, the internet, were invented by physicists for their needs. After that, they were taken by the rest of the society. Now, the society at large starting to be an equal pushing force. And so representing a community which is on both sides of the barricade, where somehow providers of some results, even if I'm a physicist, physics provides a lot of input, but also who are very big users, who are interested in all this development. So talking about quantum computing, I could tell you that a few years ago, nobody paid attention to those theoreticians talking about some strange theory like quantum computing, and now the entire society is waiting to implement it. So this proves that despite the fact that society it's very, very hungry for new technologies every day. Let's not forget fundamental research. Everything we have today, some years ago, and this gap is shorter and shorter, become some technologies which are already in some products or the society is taking. So now we are talking about quantum computing, we are talking about nuclear photonics. They are related because to do experiments, big experiments in research, we need everything was said today here. Otherwise, will not be enough effective. Europe has some strengths. It's very large infrastructure, CERN in Geneva, so Europe is a leader in the world in particle physics. Now is leader in powerful lasers. It's here in Romania, the most powerful laser in the world, so we are the leader in the field. Europe is leader in this field of powerful lasers, but also this constitutes a vulnerability. If we don't adjust ourselves very fast, we lose the competition. Education is not only for the normal people. Education should be also for researchers. 20 years ago, we didn't have internet. Now we have to understand what means 5G. We need to understand what means Internet of Things. We need to understand quantum computing. Otherwise, we cannot use them very effectively. Okay. And so education for researchers are very important. Funding is very important. Europe has probably has a lead in research infrastructure, in various research, physics, biology, but if we don't combine it in a very clever way with funding the supporting the digital part, we lose the competition.
Well, this is the cue for Mr. Viola to say, we are not going to lose this competition on my watch. And I think he wants to intervene. Because, sir, we have the research, we have part of the components, we have the capabilities to produce. Now, you bring all this together and explain us this concept that maybe some people heard today for the first time. QCI, Quantum Communication Infrastructure. What does it mean? And what will come after it? What can we build upon this backbone?
No, we are not going to lose. I will explain to you with this glass and the bottles. Can you, well, probably, can you see it? So, suppose the bottles are the data centers where your bank account, Herlitschka, is, and your health data as well. Those data centers will be connected by fiber optics. And so the information travel with lights. So we will encode this information using quantum technology. So actually the photons will have the key of the information. And if you try to look into it, the receiver will know, because there's a principle in physics that you cannot interfere with particles, because people actually, if you try to do this, you actually alter the status. Then there will be this telescope, this glass, that will be connected with a satellite that will fly like this. And actually, a laser beam will go to the telescope with the keys. And maybe, now I need to do that.
If you need more bottles, we have a lot of them.
There will be another satellite, a geostationary satellite, that will connect this other satellite. And
we need to hear you, sir. Let Herlitschka help you.
Yes, you can beam. You can be the laser beam.
Okay.
You can be the geostationary satellite.
Okay.
Yeah. So this satellite can connect to the other one. In Europe, we have this unique technology, laser technology, that allows this connection. Or this satellite can go straight to the glass. So the glass then will relay the key to this one, and then via fiber to this one. This will be a unique connected network. There's nothing like this in the world right now. It will be the most powerful, secure network of the world.
Wow.
And as you told me in our fireside chat, whoever controls this has immense power, and
it only takes 4 bottles and a glass and a cup. That's okay.
Yes. I love the props.
Yeah, absolutely.
For quantum technology, we use bottles and caps for props. Yeah.
Maybe it's a good time, I don't know, to tell you that you can edit your answer, the previous answer in Slido, and maybe after the applause you given to Mr. Viola, to change your answer to that ambition that Europe has in digital transformation. Thank you, sir, for this lesson.
Thank you, panel. Thank you very much.
I think, we are all sold here, Mr. Viola. Thank you for this demonstration. I think it's time to, what's the saying, Herlitschka? Put our mouth where the words are, or, yeah?
Put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. So let's show the rest of Europe and the world that we mean business. And I think it's time to really have a demonstration of coherence and inclusion that Europe has in tackling quantum computing. And that's going to happen right now on this stage.
And so we thank our esteemed panel. Thank you very much for sharing.
Not Mr. Viola, we need you more.
Out of this world ideas. And wish you good luck. Mr. Viola, sorry.
Yeah.
Stay there with your bottles.
And let's call on stage the representatives of Herlitschka,
Belgium,
Germany,
Spain,
Italy,
Luxembourg,
Malta,
the Netherlands,
and Austria.
So basically, we need to explain why we're calling these states representatives of states. This is because these are representatives of countries that have already committed and are working on secure quantum communications technology.
Absolutely.
And they're going to demonstrate this European cohesion and working together.
Right.
We
called you on stage on alphabetical order of saying, but doesn't matter. Just sit down, please. And maybe we should have a quick round with one question.
We pose one question to all of you. We'll begin with Belgium. We're trying to be fair, alphabetical order. One simple question. How will your country benefit from the Quantum Communications Initiative? Belgium.
Well, whether you take computers or sensors or communication networks and you put quantum in front of it and you have the technology of the future. But actually, I want to tell an anecdote of the past. In 1911, the foundations of quantum mechanics were agreed in Belgium, in Brussels, on a conference, the Solvay conference, which gathered top-notch scientists from around the world, amongst which Albert Einstein and Marie Curie.
But that again is the theory, and it was mentioned in the session just before us that we have the foundations, we have the theory, we have the knowledge centers and the scientists. In Europe we are really good at that. But what we need to become better at is testing and experimenting, and that's what this session is about, this declaration is about. It's about deploying a network that will allow companies and public sector also to experiment and to address the needs when it comes to cybersecurity and other high technologies. So it will help us to advance also in our digital sovereignty of Europe, because we know that the competition is hard, it's tough. So we know from this session also that working together is the only way ahead in Europe.
Thank you very much. Germany.
Yes, thank you very much. I think I have three answers to you. First, Germany already started to build such a network in spring of this year. But I think, first of all, we have to speed up. We have to gain time. And if we join forces, we will be faster. If we take away all the bureaucratic burden we always find in Europe. But I think if we stick to the points, I think we are much faster. Second, I think if we take all the skills and all the skilled people in Europe together, then we have a much higher volume of technology know-how we can join, and we easily can come forward than others. And third, we heard already that in the digitalized world, we have to use holistic approaches. That means we not just have to look to the quantum infrastructure itself, we have to see to the sensors, to the computers, to the whole framework. And this is where we have to cooperate, because no country is strong enough to do this all by itself. I think we can join forces here, and in the past we have proved that in cooperation Europe can get strong. We have a lot of examples where we proved that if we join forces, we are in a driving seat.
Spain.
Well, first I have to excuse the presence of the people, of the great people of the Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities, who are really the competent in this area. Spain really aims to contribute by signing this declaration to first things. First, to co-create with their European partners an excellent scientific community. As you know, Spanish researchers and institutions are world leaders in quantum communication, covering experimental and theoretical aspects. In fact, we played a pivotal role in the first phase of quantum, and we are also actively involved in the test bed on quantum communications run under Horizon 2020. Second, we want not only to co-create an excellent scientific community, but also to enhance and strengthen the European industrial base in this area. It's very important for Spain to create a European ecosystem to support some of the national initiatives led by large firms such, why not to say, Telefónica or Indra, or SMEs such as GMB and Satelio, all willing to integrate quantum cryptography in their products. And third, we want to explore, share and scale up secure communication networks. Activities in quantum communication in Spain include a metropolitan test bed combining classical and quantum channels in Madrid, and quantum encrypted communication between government sites in Barcelona. Last but not least, from our perspective, it's very important to contribute to enhance the European autonomy in such a critical area. And I agree with which Roberto has said completely.
Thank you very much. Italy.
First of all, let me say that it's a big honor for Italy to be here. In Vienna, we were also presenting our view of a quantum future with a promise of a novel revolutionary technology that promises to change the way we process, store and communicate informations. To quantum communication, Italy has devoted many important initiatives. Moreover, we are convinced that the knowledge transfer from research to industry and society needs to be strong and direct, creating a fully European high-value supply chain. Italy is fully committed to this vision, and our government is strongly encouraging and supporting this collaboration among our scientists and our industry. In Vienna, I proposed the Italian vision of complementing the flagship with a mission for quantum computing and communication, working together to create a radically new quantum internet, a disruptive new network where quantum links will be established between quantum processors, creating novel, unprecedented opportunities for the European citizens to share freely and securely information, striving to solve existing problems and creating new knowledge. Today, together with the Commission and our fellow member states, we are making the first step towards this vision. The ability to share information, and for us is very important, this conclusion, the ability to share information freely and securely is at the heart of democracy. Quantum communication can give European citizens such ability. We are proud to be among the first member states to come together to work and on creating this opportunity for our citizens.
Thank you. Luxembourg, what are the benefits for you?
Thank you very much. We think it's a great project because we really see the concrete benefits of this project. Luxembourg may be a small country, but we're actually a big player in space. So we are already having projects in this field that, for instance, ASEAS, which is a world-leading satellite operator, developed together with the European Space Agency, has recently launched the Quartz project. And this Quartz project is working towards quantum key distribution services that would be satellite-based. So we think that it's really a great case there for concrete business development where Europe needs to lead and can show that we are able to develop cutting-edge technology and be a leader in new technologies. And finally, I think also we shouldn't forget that in the end it's also about citizens, because we need to show citizens that they can trust the digital economy, and in the end we shouldn't forget that this is also a trust-building measure as it's about securing communication networks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Malta?
Thank you. For us, I think one of the biggest benefits of this initiative would be what Roberto said earlier as well, that we're just too small to do anything on quantum on our own. So by joining these initiatives, we can not only be part of something new and innovative, but also we're creating a new class of scientists and engineers in our society, which otherwise would simply not have the scale to have. So that would be one of our main benefits. Another one would be that we see the complementarity with other programs at EU level on issues such as 5G, artificial intelligence, blockchain, so forth. And we see all of these technologies together build a new ecosystem which can not only help the citizen, but also our government in terms of public administration as well, in terms of security, but also our business environment to be able to attract businesses to the area, to our country and to Europe as well, not just from Europe, but also from outside the region. So become a talent destination in terms of the region as well.
Thank you. Netherlands.
Thank you very much for having us here, and it's really a big pleasure to be part of this initiative and to collaborate with the European Commission and with these allies really in making sure that European quantum communication will indeed be the future. It can be seen really the declaration that we are, I hope I'm not giving away too much, that we may sign in a moment, is going to be a first step for Europe to bring our expertise together and to develop a true European quantum communication infrastructure. which at the end of the day is a technology of strategic importance to safeguard our digital autonomy and to create opportunities for future growth. Now, scientifically, Europe has in fact paved the way in the field of quantum technologies for in fact over a century. The foundations of quantum mechanics were invented here by great minds like Erwin Schrödinger, Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein. And this is often referred to, it was already mentioned, as the first quantum revolution. The second quantum revolution, the one that is underway now, is also fueled by European science. The first qubits, the building blocks of quantum computers, were developed in Europe. And the first entangled photons were demonstrated in European laboratories. And also the first quantum key distribution systems, we just saw an example of it, were in fact developed in Europe. So it is time that we use our expertise for the benefit of the European Union and of the member states. Quantum communication networks can be used to create, as it was shown, fundamentally safe links that cannot be hacked by third parties. And it can also be used to create distributed networks of quantum computers. Think of cases in the field of state security or financial markets and security and sensitive networks such as space infrastructures. Quantum ICT has been a national priority in the Netherlands, in my country, for years now, and we have a strong institute in Delft, whom some of you will know, which develops quantum computing devices and a local quantum internet connecting 4 cities, Amsterdam, Delft, The Hague and Leiden, close to the engineering facility ESTEC of the European Space Agency. We are also very proud to coordinate the EU flagship consortium on a quantum internet, led by Professor Stephanie Wehner, who, if I understand correctly, is also with us here today. The time has come, finally, for member states and the Commission and the European Space Agency, the industry and leading R&D facilities to take up the challenge to develop a European quantum communication infrastructure. And what we are about to sign here can be seen as a very small step, but which may certainly one day turn out to be a very giant leap.
Thank you very much. I've heard today several times the word inclusion. I just heard the word together early on. So I think these 7 signatures are just a good start. And I'm looking again to Mr. Viola. This is a good start in supporting quantum communications. And that's why Austria is here on stage, not to sign the agreement today, but to show its support.
Yes, thanks a lot. In fact, this is, I'm here to support this initiative. Unfortunately, I'm not here to sign anything which has to do with specific situation we have right now in Austria. We have, first time in our history, we have a government of experts, and they have decided not to contract any strategic topics before the next government will be in place, which will be very soon. So I would start with saying that we will be in a very short time, we will be able to get really on board on this group. Let me say something about this initiative. From the Austrian side, we support this for various reasons. Some of them have already been mentioned. First of all, I think it's important in Europe that we focus more on topics related to sovereignty. We have more and more learned to stay on our own feet. We have seen that we have areas, we have seen in the past that we had areas where we have incredibly strong knowledge in Europe, lost the industries, and so quantum communication, quantum computing is a new offer for Europe to demonstrate its strengths and its sovereignty. From Austrian perspective, I would say, this is also the case for Europe, what we see is properly emergence of a new industry, a quantum industry. Let's think back in the 50s, it was not really clear in the 50s if the computer industry is more European or more US American. So we had strong companies like Siemens Nixdorf, others. So probably there will be a new industry emerging now, and we do hope that both Europe and Austria will have a big share in it. And the last point is we happen to be quite strong in this area in Austria. We are 8 million country, and from time to time we have some excellent groups here, and we flatter ourselves to be well, among the leading countries with respect both to science and technology and engineering. So we are very much in favor of this initiative. We do think this is a very good idea. And as I said, when the time comes, we will sign any declaration and be on board of this initiative.
Thank you very much. And it is time to actually witness the actually signing of the agreement.
That's right.
So this is the moment. I'm going to call every state in the alphabetical order. The signing desk is over there, so please raise and go over there, and then we'll meet here, center stage, for a family photo for the end.
That's right. Mr. Viola, you will be witnessing this historic moment, the signing. So please proceed to the signing table, and we will call out by alphabetical order each state. So, Kingdom of Belgium, you're first.
Excellent. The Federal Republic of Germany.
Kingdom of Spain.
The Italian Republic.
Grand Duchy of Luxembourg.
And now the Republic of Malta.
Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Excellent. Mr. Viola, join us here for the family photo now. This is a historic photo. Each and every one of you will have a copy to display proudly. This is a new beginning of quantum communications in Europe. Everybody's happy? Great. I think, Herlitschka, thank you all, and please be seated in the audience now.
Congratulations.
I think, Herlitschka, this is a perfect way to close the first day of Digital Assembly 2019.
Absolutely. But Mihai, I have a question for you.
Please.
Are you afraid that next year for Digital Assembly 2020, we will be replaced by robots?
Not on this stage, Herlitschka, unless they build the quantum computers by then, you know?
But joking aside, tomorrow we have a serious look at how digital transformation is changing the way we work.
And if we need it any more convincing, we're going to learn that digital is no longer an option, it's a must. We have to implement it, including on every community level.
But that's for tomorrow. Right now it is time to relax.
And
we've earned it.
Yes, absolutely, because I'm honored to invite you all to a reception on behalf of Romanian Presidency of the EU Council to taste the Romanian hospitality at a reception which begins right now. And because I'm the host here, let me give you a hint. You go left as you exit the plenary room because there is a shortcut, right? So it's the exit next to room 4. Take my advice, it's a walking distance to Crown Plaza Hotel, and we are having ahead of us a great and pleasant evening.
And before you leave the hall, please remember to also leave your translation headsets on your seats, and you'll have them back tomorrow. Thank you so much. Enjoy yourselves.
And see you tomorrow morning. Have a great evening.